I used to be a reality hacker, and no, it's not what you think. I don't have some kind of supernatural or metaphysical powers. I just exploited real life the way that a hacker would exploit electronics or computer systems. Just like a computer hacker wanders the dark web in search of information or restricted corporation systems. I traversed the city looking for shortcuts through infrastructure or in search of things no one else knew about. I don't really like the term, though, even if the parallel I just explained makes sense. I don't understand why they have to be called something stupid like reality hacking. I prefer urban spelunking myself. I think the comparison to actual spelunking is more accurate, and it's a fun word to say. My best friend AJ and I would explore all the little nooks and corners and crannies most people don't even know exist. Drains, abandoned buildings, closed subway tunnels. We hacked things like that. We bent or broke the rules for curiosity's sake, and our own amusement. Do you remember that old bootlegger's hideout that was discovered last year in the city subway system? AJ and I found it while exploring an old tunnel. Of course, we didn't get credit for the find, we couldn't. We weren't supposed to be there in the first place, and sure as hell weren't going to let any authorities know what we were doing. Instead, I told my buddy Jerry, who works for the Public Works Department, about it. He ended up on the local news and got some kind of award for the local historic association. We didn't mind. For us, the thrill was the find. I remember when we first got into the place how excited we were. The place was really dusty. Clear sign that no one had been there for years and years. We found something everyone forgot or never knew existed in the first place. We never found anything like that again. The rush of the unexplored, the thrill of the unknown, kept me exploring all throughout high school and college. AJ and I spent the summer after our freshman year at the community college exploring the city's storm drains. We had a lot of fun doing it. If you don't mind a little humidity and the occasional bad smell, you could get across town without worrying about traffic or pedestrians. Sure, we could always drive like regular people. We both had cars, both traffic can get pretty bad in our city. A good shortcut could come in handy sometimes. One day in the middle of August, we went to a park across town for a pickup game of football. It was late in the afternoon and traffic was bumper to bumper, so we took a shortcut through one of the drains on our way home. We made good time and cut a few blocks out of our trip. To tell the truth, we were a little smug about our subterranean shortcut. I mean, who else could get across town as quick as we could without awkward hops over fences and through backyards? Most drains are either simple tubes that force you to hunch over as you walk, or they're larger corridors like tunnels with raised ledges for walking. The one we took was a tube, and normally I don't enjoy those, but this one was not very long, so I put up with it. The last rain was weeks ago, and the drain was pretty dry, making an easy go for it. Our footsteps and banter echoed down the circular tunnel, and the cool underground air felt refreshing after the heat. Our route was more or less a straight line that cut through the large hill. It connected the main drain system at a single point near the entrance by the park, where we played football. So imagine my surprise when we ran across a fork in the drain that we could have sworn wasn't there last time. We stood there looking at it for a long time, and finally AJ spoke. "I didn't know this was here." "Me neither," I said. "How could we have missed this last time?" Now, neither of us were fools. Whenever we explored, we always tried to find out as much as we could about where we went. Also, we always let people know where we were going. We searched the location before physically checking it out, bringing plenty of lights, survival equipment, stuff like that. Urban spelunking can be dangerous. And that's why we didn't just charge headlong down the new tunnel. We did what we always did. We went home and investigated. After getting back to my place, we did some digging on the internet, but the tunnel wasn't on any of the city's maintenance maps or in any public works records we could find. I called my friend Jerry from the city public works department, but he didn't seem to know about it. "Now, there's no branching drain off that one," Jerry said. "Are you sure you were where you thought you were?" "Yeah, man, I'm telling you. There's another drain down there," I said. "Well, I'm off for the next couple days. Gonna finish up north. You gotta check it out?" "Yeah, probably this weekend, yeah." "All right, I'll tell Bob you'll be down there just in case you get in trouble," Jerry said. And after a few pleasantries, we hung up. Try as we might, neither AJ nor I could find anything out about this tunnel, but we did figure out a few things. First, we were pretty sure it wasn't in use. The city had an older drain system that no longer was in use, and we figured this new one was part of it. We ventured a little way down the new route when we first found it, just to see if it was a tunnel or a room of some kind. AJ noticed that the connection was pretty rough, not smooth like a connected tunnel. Maybe the tube-style tunnels are modular, like PVC pipes. They don't cut the drain tubes to make a connection. They use prefab joints. The The connection from the main drain seemed like it was cut and then connected to the older one. Another thing that caught my attention was the lack of any kind of moisture. Most drains show at least a little evidence of dampness, even just dried leaves or debris, but this one was dry. That confirmed for us that this drain was part of the old system. We decided to explore it. Before we ventured down the tunnel, we took all our usual precautions, and a few more. We brought materials to map the place, chem lights to mark intersections, a GPS, and we let some friends know what we were going to do, and when we planned to come back. Sure, my backpack was heavier than usual, but better to play things safe considering we planned to venture into an unknown tunnel. It didn't take long for us to get to the access point, and while we walked into the intersection with the new tunnel, I found myself getting excited. I kept thinking back to the bootlegger's hideout that we found. Would we stumble upon something like that again? We might be able to take credit for it this time. That would be something. I was lost in those thoughts of grandeur and didn't realize that AJ had stopped walking. I bumped into him and he swore. "Dude, really?" he asked in feigned outrage. "Sorry, man," I said, shrugging. "Be a little more careful when we're going in," AJ said, pointing down the new tunnel. I was apparently so lost in thought that I didn't realize we had arrived. We stopped to check our gear and then made our way in. AJ went first, and I followed. When we started walking, we kept count of the number of steps we took. We knew from experience how many feet 100 paces would take us, what orienteering enthusiasts called a pace count. That helped us construct a fairly accurate map. We knew where the new tunnel branched off of from the old one, how many steps it took us to walk a certain section, and in which cardinal direction each turn led. We could even do this walking hunched over in a cramped space like this one, so even after a few twists and turns, we were still pretty confident of our location despite having walked about an hour. We decided to take a break and check our position, even though we felt pretty sure about our navigation skills. We were making a crude map based on our pace count and compared it to a city public works map. I guesstimated that we were near the slums, probably under Lake Street. We decided to check the first manhole that we found, verifying our position. I was also getting tired and a little sore from walking through the cramped space and needed to stretch. To our great satisfaction, we popped up onto Lake Street. Lake and Union, to be exact. It was a little odd, not because we were lost, we were actually right on the money, but because according to the Public Works map, no access points existed here. Still, we didn't question that, even if it did seem odd at the time. We were more surprised at what was on the street than a manhole that someone neglected mapping. Lake Street used to be nice a couple decades ago. Big houses lined either side, mostly run down and abandoned. These houses were close to a century old and dated back to the early days of the city, but gradually fell out of style as the years went on. Even in its dilapidated state, the neighborhood was still impressive. Most of the houses were at least 3 stories tall and an old Victorian style. I would have felt nostalgic for simpler times if the whole thing wasn't so unexpected. I remember the house right in front of the manhole from which we exited was particularly impressive. I knew that some big houses still stood on the street, but this one was enormous. It was a 4-story monstrosity of an old-fashioned mansion. Most of the windows were boarded up, the yard was overgrown, but it was clearly a nice place once upon a time. The sun was getting low and the late afternoon shadow obscured many of the house's details, but that also helped hide the blemishes of decay. "Dude," AJ said after a few moments. "I had no idea this was here." "Yeah, me neither," I replied. "Oh, we knew all the big old houses around here." Well, apparently not." AJ turned towards me. "You want to check it out?" "What, now?" I asked incredulously. "We don't even know if it's structurally sound." AJ gave me a look which people reserve only for valley girls, old ladies at church, and lame practical jokers. "I don't want to go inside, dumbass. Let's walk around outside and see if there's anything interesting." "Okay," I answered slowly. Walking around the outside couldn't hurt, I guess. I just wasn't sure why AJ wanted to leave the unexplored tunnel behind. As if reading my mind, he spoke again. "We spent most of summer underground, man. Let's enjoy some fresh air. We won't go inside, just walk the grounds. See if we could find anything out about it that way. You can always pick up the drains tomorrow." I thought for a second. I didn't see any fault in his logic, and some fresh air did sound good. "Okay," I said. "I'm game. I just don't want to hang out here forever. It's almost dinner time and I'm pretty hungry." Patted my stomach to emphasize the point, and AJ laughed. "Yeah, me too. We can hit up a burger joint on the way back. Let's go." With that, we set off. Finding a way into the yard wasn't hard since the fence was broken in many places. We didn't even have to jump it. Walking through the tall grass wasn't easy though. I made a mental note to check myself for ticks when I got home. Circling around the house didn't get us much in the way of results, though. The side was just as boarded up as the front. No discernible way in or out caught our eye. Not until we made our way to the backyard, and suddenly, the ground gave way beneath us. One moment we were walking through the tall grass, and the next, our world dissolved into a torrent of dirt, broken wood, and gravity. Before we knew it, we found ourselves in some sort of cellar. We lay there in a daze for a minute, shocked by what happened. AJ groaned and sat up. I coughed and sputtered a bit. Apparently I got a mouthful of dirt on the way down. Guess I was too surprised to notice. "The hell?" AJ asked. "You okay?" I said, sitting up myself. "Yeah, I think so." AJ stood up and brushed himself off. "Nothing's broken." I looked up and saw the hole in which we fell through. It's pretty high above us, too high to reach. Broken plywood framed the edges of the hole. It's probably fairly rotten and gave way as soon as we put pressure on it. "AJ, that's a long way up, man. I don't think we're going to get back out that way." AJ swore. Yeah, I think you're right." I looked around, but I couldn't see much in the limited light of the ceiling. I took off my backpack, dug inside for a few seconds, and pulled out my flashlight. I turned it on and shined it around the room. It seemed to be a cellar typical for a house as old as this one, albeit deeper than usual. I saw a door at one end. AJ saw it too. "Only one way out, huh?" he said. I nodded and got up. We checked our gear, grabbed an extra light, and walked over to the door. It didn't seem like it was locked when I tested the knob, but an inexplicable feeling of dread came over me when I touched it. My skin prickled goose flesh, which caused me to shudder and jerk back my hand. The door opened. We both jumped at it. I was pretty sure that I hadn't turned the knob or even got my whole hand around it, but it opened anyway. We didn't lose our heads despite the surprise of the sudden open, for AJ and I moved to opposite sides of the door so that whoever had opened the door couldn't see us. "Hello?" I called after a few minutes. "Is anyone there?" Nothing but silence answered me. I looked at AJ and he shrugged. I frowned, but I didn't say anything. We moved in front of the door and shined our flashlights in. It looked like the perfect man cave from the late 80s. Pool table sat immediately in front of us, and on the opposite wall was a large screen TV that would have been top of the line sometime around 1985. Posters of action movies like Die Hard, Terminator, and Predator bedecked the wood panel walls, along with some pro sports players like Larry Bird or Wayne Gretzky, an old swimsuit issue of Farrah Fawcett and Kathy Ireland. A couple cases of sports memorabilia stood against the left wall. It dispersed with the images of late 20th century testosterone, and a bar was on the right side of the room. Dust covered everything, except the carpet. Dim light filtered through gaps in the boards covering the windows. We fanned out. AJ went to look at the display case, and I examined the pool table. Near the pool table was an autographed poster of the NFL player William Perry. I remember the poster from when I was a kid because my older brother had one on his wall. Perry, nicknamed the Fridge, was smiling and leaning against a refrigerator, but in this one, his face was fixed into a snarl. His eyes seemed to be looking directly into mine, and I had the distinct impression that expression of hate was for me. I blinked, and the Fridge was back to the smiling football player that I remembered, and not the hate-twisted visage I could have sworn was glaring at me a moment ago. I glanced over to AJ to see if he saw what I did, but he was crouching in front of a case of sports memorabilia. I gave the poster one more glance, then made my way over to AJ. As I walked to the case, AJ straightened up and said out loud, "Dude, what the hell?" He turned to look at me and pointed at the bottom shelf. I bent over to see what he was talking about. Right in the middle of the bottom shelf sat the strangest figure I had ever seen. There was two people laying on the ground with their stomachs ripped open and their entrails strewn about them. The really weird part is, they looked exactly like us. "What?" I said. "Yeah, man. This is really weird. How the hell did these get here? This makes no sense, dude. We need to get out of here. Now. Yeah. Let's go." We moved with more than a little urgency to the door through which we came in, but out of shock it seemed to be locked again. Another door sat on the far side of the basement, and we made a beeline for it. AJ wrenched it open. We could see stairs leading up to darkness. AJ started up the stairs, and I started to follow. Before I could even climb one step, I felt something touch my hair. The touch was so light that I could have imagined it. In fact, I thought I did until I felt breathing on my neck and heard faintly whispered words that I couldn't quite make out. I don't remember exactly what happened next, but I found myself at the top of the stairs. I must have sprinted up to the next floor so quickly that I didn't realize it. I could hear footsteps following me, and I thought I heard AJ call out, "Hey, man!" I wrenched the door open and then stopped dead. I was back in the basement, standing just inside the door we came through when we first entered the room. The only difference was that no light was coming through the windows now. The only illumination came from my flashlight. A sudden noise made me jump and drop my flashlight. The door behind me slammed shut. The flashlight rolled away from me, towards the center of the room, throwing crazily spinning shadows all over the room. I moved forward to retrieve it, but a sudden motion made me freeze. Something was moving around us at the light. Scuffling sounds came from the other side of the pool table. I peered at the table, trying to make out the shape in the limited lighting. It was already on the edge, and my fight or flight instinct was starting to kick into gear. And then, something grabbed my leg. I didn't want to see what it was. I just bolted. No flashlight, no plan. Just get the hell out. I reached the stairs and took them 2 at a time. I crashed through the door and found myself, thankfully, in another room. I looked around and saw that I was in some sort of space between a kitchen and a living room. The kitchen was on my left, the living room was on my right. A large sliding door was on the far wall in front of me, and a little bit of the evening light leaked through from where the boards that covered it didn't sit flush. Everything was covered in the same dust as the basement. Something was wrong, though. I couldn't put my finger on it, and then it suddenly dawned on me. I could hear whispering. I didn't notice at first because my heart was racing and I was breathing heavy, but now that I started to catch my breath, I could hear it. Faint whispers, like the ones I heard at the bottom of the stairs, seemed to be coming from the living room. I was already on edge, almost panicking, and that set me over. I blindly rushed in the other direction and saw AJ just ahead of me. He looked like he was leaving the kitchen through an archway on the other side of the room. I started following him and then jumped when I suddenly heard footsteps pounding up the stairs. I leapt through the archway and came into some sort of living room or sitting room. Dodging indistinct blobs in the dark, I tried to keep up with the dim shape of AJ ahead of me. This room was darker than the kitchen. I had to slow down to avoid crashing into something in the dark, even though the sound of footsteps behind me was growing louder. Even if it was a squatter or some crazy old resident who never left the place, every instinct I had told me that I did not want to meet whatever was behind me in this house. Illumination from the streetlights suddenly filled the room. AJ had managed to wrench open an exterior door, and the light illuminated the room enough for me to see my way. He stood silhouetted against the bright frame of the door for a second, and then disappeared outside. I sprinted for the door and did not stop until I was outside. I dashed across the large porch to the steps and into the yard. AJ stood there, bent over and breathing heavy. "Holy hell, man," I said, panting. "That was close." "Yeah," he answered, his voice strangely flat. "Close." I was about to ask him if he was okay when a voice came from behind me and cut me off. "Dude, what the hell? You didn't wait for me?" I knew that voice. It was AJ's, but AJ stood in front of me, gasping for air. After a mad dash out of the house, in which we accidentally fell, how could he be behind me? I turned to look, afraid of what I might see. My stomach sank, and a cold feeling of dread settled over me as I saw what was behind me. It was AJ. He was walking down the steps with a concerned look on his face. "Dude," the second AJ said. "Who's that?" The first AJ stood up. They both looked at each other, a curious expression on their faces, one that quickly changed into horror. I looked at both of them, then back at the house. It stood silent and dark in the night, as though no one had even bothered it. No one spoke. Shit. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to say thank you for watching tonight's video. If you guys really liked today's video, feel free to check me out at patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. A bunch of you already did, like Taysia-lynn, Genobaga-Arneho, Erik Mary, Daniel Poulsen, Trace Miles, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Wayne Milstead, Ken Lando Higuchi, Brianna Tine-Janzen, Nicholas Saeid Alyain, Buddy Burroughs, Tyler Ramberg, Goonington, G. Weevil 3, Diane Kraus, Asia, Gabrielle baca, TheRedOakShieldVirus, Sandy Barney, Melissa Sweigart, Chompski, Daniel Rowe, TheGingerBroz, Robert Ramirez, Andrew Stenberg, Holy Realm, Ralph Rodriguez, and Dr. Strawberry. A very special thank you to you guys for being the top supporters on Patreon. And honestly, any support at all is really appreciated. So if you're watching on YouTube, listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, or Google Play, or I guess anywhere you can manage to find a podcast, a huge thank you to you guys as well. Oh, also, if you want to help support my wife, she runs a tea shop over on Etsy, etsy.com/ivorymonocle. She actually does Dungeons & Dragons themed stuff, but she just started doing a Final Fantasy and Harry Potter tea set, so that might be something you'd like on a dark and stormy night. Sweet dreams, kids.